Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Laughing Baby, the extraordinary science behind what makes babies happy, by Caspar Addyman, narrated by Gerrard. Introduction. What's so funny? Babies are such a nice way to start people. Don Herold, American humorist. What a piece of work is a man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving how express and admirable, in action how like an angel, in apprehension how like a god, the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. William Shakespeare. Hamlet, circa 1600, Act 2, Scene 2. Even the morbid Prince of Denmark had to admit humans are a big deal. Thanks to Charles Darwin, we no longer think of ourselves as the single summit of evolution. We're one tiny twig in the tangled thicket of life. We occupy a niche as social bipedal omnivores. Glance around the planet, and we have many well-adapted cohabitants, each excellent at their own tricks. Eagles and sharks out-hunt us. Cheetahs and even hippos can out-sprint us. Elephants and whales outlive us. Ants outweigh us. Plants and amphibians have bigger genomes, and bacteria secretly rule the world. But no creature is as clever, as dexterous, as social, as collaborative, or as emotional, let alone as artistic, as talkative, or as musical as humans. We are amazing, and yet we are born almost entirely helpless. Every superhero has their origin story. Superman and Batman were orphans. Spider-Man and the Hulk went radioactive. As you will see from this book, babies are the origin story of our own superpowers. If human babies were not so helpless, we would not be so clever. If our babies did not need our support, humans would not be so social. Our connection to our offspring even gives rise to our creation of music and art. We are all superpowered, and the first 2 years of life are our training montage. This is a feel-good film. Babies are pure joy, and this book celebrates their achievements and their delight. The two are closely connected. Babies work very hard in their first 2 years, but to them it feels like play. They learn a lot, and they laugh a lot. Curiosity and glee drive them forward. Surprising discoveries and daily progress keep them going. Parents provide support and encouragement, meeting babies' basic needs and structuring their lives. But it is the babies who scale the mountains and stand triumphant at the peaks. So, this book won't list the do's and don'ts of raising a superhero. It is not a parenting manual filled with advice or warnings. I am not a parent. It is a book about the science of being a baby. As a developmental psychologist, I am interested in the baby's perspective. I want to know what they are thinking, how they are learning, and why they have so much fun along the way. Being a baby is a great adventure, full of ups and downs. Parenting books help you avoid the downs, but I believe there's a lot to be learned from the ups, too. I have been a baby scientist since 2005, but it was only in 2012 that I started taking baby laughter seriously. My younger sister had just had her second baby, and my younger brother was a stand-up comedian. I was wondering what we could all do together. Eureka! Max could make the new baby laugh, and I could explain why. It turns out that stand-up comedians take laughter quite seriously, so Max thought the gig was too easy. But the idea was planted in my mind, and I started to wonder if baby laughter was a suitable topic to study. I discovered very little previous research. Laughter is spontaneous, which makes it tricky to study in a laboratory. This is especially true of babies. They may laugh often, but they can be enigmatic, laughing at the most unexpected things. Stand-up comedy for babies is harder than you might think. Few scientists had taken on the challenge of studying laughter, which was usually viewed as a marker for something else, such as a way to understand early humour and joking, or as an indication of a baby's temperament and positive mood. Rarely was laughter central to the story of development itself. Laughter is abundant in babies' daily lives and universally appealing to everyone else. I felt it must be important. I created a website, laughingbaby.info, and designed a detailed survey of baby laughter. Journalists from all over the world covered the project, and thousands of parents from dozens of countries completed my questionnaire. Hundreds more sent me short field reports and videos of things that made their babies laugh. I started to take baby laughter very seriously indeed. In the years since then, I have concluded that my intuition was broadly correct. Laughter is important to our early development, and the roots of laughter are planted deep by evolution. This does not mean babies who laugh more develop better. There is no recommended daily amount of laughter. Instead, think of laughter as a happy counterpoint to crying. When a baby cries, we do not focus on the crying itself. We stop what we are doing and try to fix the problem the baby is telling us about. Laughter is the opposite. It is a baby sharing its successes. I believe it is worth stopping to examine those triumphs. In fact, this may be the purpose of laughter. As I studied laughter, my interests kept widening to consider all the ways babies thrive and how they strive to meet their wider goals. So this book is about babies' emotions, their connections, their learning and their curiosity. It covers the first 2 years of life in roughly chronological order, but I have avoided putting in too many milestones. They don't mean much. Each baby follows their own path. The book is about the journey, not the destination. We have plenty of growing and learning to do beyond the first 2 years, but the foundations we build are important. Studying our origins helps us understand ourselves better. Don't get fooled into thinking this book is going to be just about the fun and games of babies. It contains a lot of serious academic research explaining many core concepts that apply far beyond babyhood. We will address such big questions as how the mind works, how we evolved, what emotions are, and what art is. Along the way, we will see babies taking on intellectual giants like René Descartes, Sigmund Freud, Noam Chomsky, and Ludwig Wittgenstein. Ultimately, however, this book is intended to do the impossible, which is to make the adorable sound of a baby's laughter even more enchanting. If it fails, find a baby and let them entertain you instead. Chapter 1. A Time Before Smiles. When the first baby laughed for the first time, its laugh broke into 1,000 pieces, and they all went skipping about, and that was the beginning of fairies. J.M. Barrie, Peter Pan. A baby's first laugh is a magical moment. Parents have no trouble remembering it, even years later. Happening anywhere from a few weeks of age to 4 or 5 months, those early laughs will very likely be small and subtle, a light and breathy chuckle. A tiny baby cannot coordinate the rapid contractions of the intercostal chest muscles required to laugh properly, but the sound is unmistakable nonetheless. For the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, the first time we laugh marks the instant when our soul enters our body and the moment we become truly human. He thought laughter was what separated us from the animals. He was wrong, of course. Other animals can and do laugh, and the boundary between us and other species is a matter of degree, a question of genes and culture. As for the soul, nowadays we would probably call it consciousness, and we understand that it dawns slowly. A baby's first laugh is a very special event, and one that feels transformative. Sometimes it is a spontaneous sound of well-being and satisfaction. I am warm and happy, and full of mother's milk. Occasionally it is a response to something the baby sees, like a shadow waving on the wall. Best of all is when it is the result of something a parent does, returning to the room, or planting a ticklish kiss. However small the first laugh may be, parents will recognize in it the idea that a laugh is a smile that burst. It is the first time a baby expresses their absolute delight with the world. It is a memory that can stay with a parent forever. When I ran a global survey of baby laughter in 2012, one parent, Mary, took the trouble to write and tell me about the sound of the angels that burst forth when she kissed her tiny daughter's tummy. It had happened 42 years previously, but it still echoed in her memory and made her smile with joy. It was one of many similar stories. This is rather remarkable, given that adult memory is usually very vague and non-specific. What did you have for lunch yesterday, or do on your last birthday? Not many events in our grown-up lives stick all that well. Even wedding days become hazy, but our children's first laughs, first steps, first words remain with us and raise a smile decades later. Memories of first smiles can be more elusive and uncertain. Parents have a hard time pinpointing the very first smile, and more difficulty recalling it. There are several things happening here. Not only are first smiles more subtle and fleeting, but very often parents have been taught to doubt their own judgments. There is a much-repeated myth that all smiles before about 6 weeks old are merely trapped wind or the sign of a baby filling their nappy, rather than a true expression of pleasure or contentment. This myth is widespread and persistent. I've even seen it on popular midwifery websites. It is one I completely reject. It is true that babies do pull funny faces when burping or pooping. They also smile with true satisfaction. The parents I've surveyed are convinced they have seen genuine smiles from very early on, and I believe them. They are, no doubt, slightly biased, but they are also studying their own baby far more intently than anyone else does. No one doubts that first cries and first tears are real. A baby in distress is obvious to all, yet, strangely, experts often deny that early positive emotions are valid, saying first smiles aren't proper smiles. Worse yet, here we have new parents being told by experts they are wrong about something so basic. As they're already uncertain of their own abilities, it is not a great way to reassure them. The key message of this book is that parents and their babies figure most things out for themselves. Nobody is ever properly prepared for a baby, but equally parents know more than they realize, and they learn fast. The first weeks of life are even more stressful and bewildering for the baby, but their little laughs and smiles are a sign they are succeeding. No one should take that away from them. Happily, we will find the parents are correct, not the experts, as babies are able to experience and express pleasure before they are even born. There is another milestone for new mothers that it is often overlooked. When was the first time her baby made her laugh? This is earlier than you think. Of course, there can be big smiles at the very beginning, perhaps the time when she first suspected she was pregnant, perhaps when it was confirmed by that second blue line on a pregnancy test, or maybe a little later, when seeing another mum with her new baby made the reality of her own future more concrete. Secret joy. But I'm not talking about those moments. I like to think the first time a baby directly makes mother laugh is when she feels it moving inside her. A good friend tells me of laughing on noticing her unborn daughter had the hiccups, but it doesn't take something as comical as this to bring smiles to a mother's lips. Often, it is just the joy of a tangible new reality. In my favourite part of Expecting, Chitra Ramaswamy's book-length memoir of her pregnancy, Ramaswamy describes going out for dinner with friends to celebrate her birthday. At 5 months pregnant, she can't enjoy the restaurant's adventurous food and is distracted from her friends as her baby wriggles inside her. I sat sipping champagne that tasted more like cider, pretending to follow the conversation while the baby fizzed in my belly. I said nothing about this furtive firework display. I had no desire to talk about it. There was nothing for anyone else to feel, nothing for anyone else to understand. This was my secret Morse code, tapping out its message on my insides. I felt flushed with joy. It was one of the happiest moments of my life, one I can summon up whenever I want to, and often do. Just as that private joy became one of the happiest moments of her life, Ramaswamy also relates how Leo Tolstoy makes this secret moment a pivotal scene in his realist masterpiece, Anna Karenina. Anna is pregnant with the child of her lover, Vronsky, but huge obstacles face them because she is already married. Anna has dreamed she will die in childbirth, and informs Vronsky, prompting another fraught discussion of their doomed affair. But in the middle of this, Anna experiences the great fears for her situation giving way to a sense of bliss when she feels her baby stirring inside her. This first feeling of movement is known as the quickening. For thousands of years it was the first major event of pregnancy. Before pregnancy tests and modern medicine, this was the first time a woman could say with certainty that she was pregnant. Ancient Greeks and Romans thought this was the moment when the soul entered the child's body. They believed that these movements indicated the movement when the fetus became animated with life. Animus and anima being the Latin words for mind and soul respectively, and both having their roots in an even more ancient Proto-Indo-European word for breath or breathing. The legal system also recognized the quickening as the point that divided life from potential life, as in the biblical phrase, the quick and the dead. In English common law, abortion was permissible before this point, and assaults that caused a woman to miscarry after the quickening were treated as more serious. Until 1869, even the Catholic Church held this view. It accepted abortion before the quickening as the destruction of potential life, not of life itself. Legal definitions are now based on viability of life outside the womb. English law recognizes a fetus as being capable of being born alive from 24 weeks, and a baby's legal status as an individual commences from the point they draw their first breath. In the private history of any individual pregnancy, quickening is a big milestone. The very first flutters of movement are a tangible joy, literally a touching moment. From here onwards, a mother has a new connection with her little passenger and can start to infer their personality. Comparing the patterns of activity with the experiences of other mums-to-be, is her little one more prone to wriggling late at night or early in the morning? How do they respond to music or their mother's mood, to coffee or to cake? For a first-time mum, the initial feelings of a baby moving typically occur between weeks 16 and 20 of pregnancy. Second-time mums tend to notice these movements several weeks earlier because their uterus walls are thinner, but fetuses are moving long before the mother notices. The first movements happen between 4 and 8 weeks after conception, although there is no way a mother will notice these, as the fetus is still the size of a lentil. Even before the introduction of hormonal pregnancy tests in the 1970s, few women failed to notice the massive changes that swept through the body after a fertilized egg implants in the womb. The process is started by a flood of human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG to its friends, that gets released when the placenta first forms. This tells the ovaries a pregnancy is taking place and prompts them to keep producing progesterone while the placenta takes over producing estrogen. The levels of both these two main female hormones will keep increasing throughout pregnancy. A third important hormone, oxytocin, makes its appearance later at the time of the birth. Progesterone increases the mother's body temperature and metabolism, requiring extra energy, which is one reason she feels tired all the time. Progesterone also relaxes muscle tone, which is useful in later stages of pregnancy, but early on affects the stomach and intestine, causing heartburn via acid reflux. Estrogen changes her senses of smell and taste and is thought to cause the nausea, vomiting and stomach cramps of morning sickness. On top of all that, she has also just found out she is pregnant. It is not unreasonable for her to be feeling a bit fragile and largely in the dark, so that first touch of the baby is reassuring. In the dark, we can listen. Eavesdropping on life in the womb has been an important part of obstetrics for nearly 200 years. The humble stethoscope and its modern cousin, ultrasound, were both invented by maternity doctors. In 1816, René Laennec invented the stethoscope. He used to get embarrassed about having to put his ear to women's chests to listen to their hearts, so he made a listening tube. Laennec and his colleagues realized this new invention would let them listen to an unborn baby's heartbeat too. The first reports of fetal heart rates are from 1821 by Laennec's pupil, Jean-Alexandre Le Jumeau de Kergaradec. The Y-shaped stethoscope appeared in 1851 and hasn't changed much since then. It is good enough to hear a baby's heart beating from the 22nd week of pregnancy, though this can depend on the orientation of the baby in the womb and how much mummy's stomach is gurgling. It can even confirm if there are going to be twins. Measuring fetal heart rate and how much it varies can tell doctors about the health of the fetus. The heart rate is controlled by two complementary systems, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. The sympathetic nervous system causes increases in heart rate, and the parasympathetic causes decreases. Normally they are in balance with each other, and the heart rate gradually cycles up and down. A very fast or very slow heart rate, or even a lack of variability, can be a warning sign for doctors. Medical ultrasound was invented by Ian Donald, an obstetrician working at the Glasgow Royal Maternity Hospital. He knew high-frequency sound waves were being used in industry to detect flaws in welds and joints, and wondered if they would work on tissue. In 1955 he visited Glasgow engineering firm Babcock and Wilcox. Donald turned up with 2 carloads of medical specimens and found the industrial ultrasound device could detect the anomalous signals coming from tumours and cysts in the samples. Donald and colleagues built their own version and started using it in their diagnostic work. They wrote up their findings for the medical journal The Lancet in 1958, kick-starting a revolution in medical diagnostics. Ultrasound and heart rate monitoring are the backbone of medical monitoring of fetal development. They have also been used by developmental scientists like myself to uncover what babies experience in the womb. Measuring changes in fetal heart rate allows us to determine when a fetus is surprised by something. Ultrasound lets us see how a fetus moves in response to sounds, movements, and other stimuli. Coupled with what is known about the biology of the growing fetus, this lets us build a picture of what a fetus can learn in the womb. Ultrasound shows that the clump of cells that becomes the heart is already beating by the 6th week after conception. At this point, the embryo is the size of a lentil, but already the ears, mouth, and nose are visible. The eyes and nostrils are 2 little black dots, and arms and legs are still little stubs, the fingers and toes webbed. A 6-week-old embryo will already move in response to touches around the mouth and nose area. These are simple reflexive actions, but show that the nervous system is already beginning to arrange itself. This also gives a hint as to why mouthing is such an important exploratory skill for babies. Fruit of the womb. Over the next 2 weeks, the embryo doubles to blueberry-sized, and then doubles again to the size of a raspberry, according to the fruit and veg-based measurement system that seems to be standard in all baby books ever written. At around 10 or 11 weeks, the little strawberry has sleep and wake cycles. Mostly the womb is a bedroom. Throughout the pregnancy, a fetus spends over 90% of its time asleep. Sleep cycles are about 40 minutes at a time, punctuated by a few minutes of activity, the amount of activity increasing as time goes by. When it's strawberry-sized, movements are minimal but clearly exhausting, as in utero yawns that have been seen as early as week 11. Week 13 is peachy. This is the end of the first trimester, 1/3 of the way through the pregnancy, and the embryo has developed sufficiently for us to start calling it a fetus. The first voluntary movements start to happen around 16 weeks, when the fetus is about 4.5 inches long, 11.5 centimeters, and the size of an avocado. Periods of activity are accompanied by fetal calisthenics. The fetus is recognizably human by now, with a big round head and teeny tiny fingers and toes. Fetal development is not simply a process of growth from blueberry-sized blob to bouncing baby. Throughout this time, the constant metamorphosis is no less dramatic than from caterpillar to butterfly. Cells are not only dividing and their numbers multiplying, but their functions change, and they migrate within the body to different goals and different roles. That blueberry still has gill-like structures, which become the jawbone, and a tail which becomes the coccyx. Most internal organs are only fully formed by week 20, and neurons keep moving and connecting beyond birth. As I've already mentioned, the expectant mother will feel the first tickles of movement somewhere between week 16 and 20. Avocado to small banana. This is typically when the mid-term ultrasound takes place. The fetus is carefully examined to check everything is developing as expected. On modern ultrasounds, the sex of the baby can be seen if you know what you are looking for. Chances are the fetus will be asleep during this exam, but if it is moving, you might be in for a nice surprise. In March 2015, Jen Hazel and her husband went for their 14-week ultrasound scan with their doctor in Olympia, Washington. During the scan, the fetus clapped her hands together. As Jen describes it, "We went in for an ultrasound, and the baby clapped 3 times on screen. Not to the music, just clapped 3 times. So my doctor, he said, 'Well, let's sing a song.' My husband grabbed his video, and the doctor re-ran the ultrasound and played the claps, and I sang, and he sang with me. 'If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.' Their singing isn't great. Jen is laughing too much, and her husband doesn't seem to know all the words. But it's a delightful video, and when it was uploaded to YouTube, it understandably went viral. At the time of writing, it has nearly 12 million views. So could a 14-week-old fetus be happy? Here we get to the heart of this chapter. Is there a time before smiles? When does happiness and contentment begin? Are they present from the very start, or do emotions only turn on sometime after birth? Jen's daughter, Pip, was born safe and healthy. She is a happy, playful baby, and she still likes music. But what about when Pip was still a lemon-sized fetus of 14 weeks? Was she happy? And did she know it? Could she know it? A single fertilized egg, a zygote, cannot know or show happiness. Nor can the little ball of cells in the blastocyst, or even the yawning strawberry-sized embryo. From the many parental reports in my baby laughter survey, I am confident a baby of just a few weeks old can show genuine contentment. So when do the lights come on? When can a smile really be a smile? No research exists on fetal pleasure. Indeed, it will be hard to know where to start, but fetal pain is a good guide to pleasure. Pleasure and pain are supported by similar circuits, and evidence is accumulating that, by end of the second trimester, at around 24 to 25 weeks post-conception, a fetus can feel rudimentary pain. The Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, RCOG, published a detailed report in 2010 that reviewed the available evidence. They concluded that fetal awareness of pain is not possible before 24 weeks. For anyone to experience pain, nerve signals from the unpleasant stimulus must reach a cortex, capable of processing them. If the signal from some part of the body doesn't reach the brain, we will only experience numbness. This is how a local anesthetic works, by blocking the nerve signals at source. If the signals reach the brainstem and thalamus, but aren't passed upwards to the cortex, we won't feel anything. This is how general anesthetic works, by blocking all signals from the brainstem to the cortex. Before 24 weeks, a fetus cannot experience pain because the brain is not fully connected. In particular, the thalamus, which is a kind of junction box between brain and body, is not properly wired to the cortex, the wrinkly thinking bit. This is not too surprising when you appreciate how complicated the brain is, and how tangled the wiring. Every part needs to talk to every other part, and those wires are long trailing tails of brain cells called axons. To connect one place to another, the cells must be born in one area and migrate to the other, trailing the tail behind them. As you can imagine, this is complicated, and the wiring cannot happen until there is somewhere to connect to. The thalamus and the cortex, initially known as the cortical plate, grow separately. A further group of cells develops in a subplate zone beneath the cortex. From 12 to 18 weeks, connections from the thalamus arrive in the subplate zone, and then wait as the cortical plate matures. At around 24 weeks, they recommence their journey to connect to all areas of the cortex, a process that continues to week 32. Also at 24 weeks, the neurons of the subplate themselves migrate into different areas of the cortex, effectively wiring these areas together. Both these processes are important to an awareness of pain. An 18-week-old fetus moves away from a needle prick and even releases stress hormones, but it doesn't feel the pain. The signals can reach the thalamus and potentially the subplate zone, but they can't ascend any higher. The withdrawal of the limb and the hormone release are reflexes that come from the brainstem. By 24 weeks, nerve signals start to get through the cortex. Brainwave recordings performed with very premature infants show coordinated neural activity in response to a heel prick from 24 weeks of pregnancy. This sets the lower limit recommended by the RCOG. But, as they observe in their report, although this is the theoretical minimum age that pain can be felt...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?